Let's continue to look at different cases of racial discrimination. Investigators from the University of New York have demonstrated how, during economic crises, individual perceptions change concerning the issue of race. The study also concluded that social economic differences between whites and Afro-Americans deepened during these periods of crises. The study reveals how during the 2007 and 2009 economic collapse, the average wealth for white households reduced by 16%, while Afro-American households suffered a drop of 53%.
African Americans were first introduced to the United States as a form of property. We talked to Laura Gottesdiener, author of the book
A Dream Foreclosed:
Black America and the Fight for a Place to Call Home. In this book, she argues that the current unfair relationship between African Americans and property is something that was at the heart of the financial crisis of 2008, and it is something that can be traced back to the slavery period.
The only people that could own homes, that could own land, were free white men. So once you owned these homes, it immediately signified that you were part of the political, economic elite. And that has in some ways stayed, remained the history and the symbolism of housing and homes throughout the country.
Regardless of the victories achieved by the civil rights movement, the United States is a country where institutional racism is still an issue. The recent crisis showed that one of its contemporary forms is predatory bank lending practices.
The average white American, somebody like me, walking around the streets of the United States, owns 20 times more money, 20 times more wealth than the average African American walking down the street. And so when you start talking about a group of people, white people, owning 20 times more wealth than a group of people, African Americans, you can start to see that we still live in an incredibly racially unequal, particularly economically unequal society. And one of the ways that that inequality has been passed from generation to generation to generation is through racial discrimination in who buys houses, who's able to buy houses, what they cost, who gets mortgages, what the terms of the mortgages are, and how much fraud the bank, uses to cheat people out of their mortgages and out of their homes. So just, to give a few examples of the type of discrimination that we saw in the most recent crisis is, African Americans were twice as likely to be evicted from their homes than white Americans, to go through foreclosure. African Americans with a good credit score, with high credit, meaning they should be able to go to a bank and get a good loan because they have, a good likelihood of being able to pay it back, they were 3 times more likely to be sold a predatory loan, a predatory mortgage, than a white American of the exact same credit score.
We went to Chicago and talked to John Newman, a man who was evicted from his home, and like many who found themselves in this situation, struggled not to fall into a cycle of poverty and homelessness.
One of the problems that I had with finding a job is I had nowhere to go. If I can't sit still to get comfortable in a home to find a job, then how am I going to find a job when I'm trying to find a home? First I got to find me shelter. If I can't find myself shelter, then I can't go out here and find myself a job.
Well, the investigations of mortgage fraud ranks as a low priority for the United States Justice Department. Millions of African Americans still today, 6 years after the housing crisis, struggle for a place to call home. This is Clara Ibarra with Carolina Crone reporting for Telesur, United States.